building trades in a conventional process, which is highly inefficient, is more costly than you can afford to build affordable housing with.
Welcome to the Bold Brand Show. If you're in the AEC industry and want to grow your firm, we're sharing exactly how bold and innovative firms win more. The sad truth is, most firms that are struggling in the AEC industry are still doing things the way we've always done them. But this show is about finding a better way. I'm your host and founder of Bold Brand, Josh Miles. I'm a published author, veteran of the TEDx stage, and a brand strategist with over 25 years of experience. But my superpower is my focus on AEC firms to understand how branding and marketing in the professional services industries is wildly different than for retail brands like Apple, Amazon, or Starbucks. So in this podcast, we're going deep with AEC firm leaders, marketers, and innovators in the AEC industry. We'll focus on the hottest topics and trends in AEC to uncover the growth secrets of the most successful firms and how firms can create lasting legacies and perhaps what the future has in store. I've got a special deal to share with you from my friends at BizNow. I regularly hit up BizNow events here in Denver, and honestly, they're my go-to for networking in commercial real estate and AEC. Each month, they pull together these great panels with heavy-hitting speakers who actually know what's happening right now in different markets. Not just theory, but real deals and trends. What's cool is they're not just a Denver thing. They run these events across the country. So if you're looking to stay on top of market shifts or want to connect with people making moves in CRE, it's worth checking out. If you're interested, check out BizNow. That's biznow.com/events to see what's coming up. You can use the code BOLD, that's BOLD, when you register to save 15% on your ticket. Trust me, the connections you'll make are worth it. Special thank you to BizNow. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Roger Krulak, founder and president of FullStack Modular, the leading modular innovator in the design, manufacture, and construction of mid and high-rise multifamily buildings, hotels, and student housing in urban environments. Roger's 35 years of experience in the built world has transformed to the construction industry with his progressive approach to design and manufacturing. Driven by his belief that modular construction holds the key to creating sustainable, affordable, and high-quality buildings, he's using advanced technologies to elevate modular construction within the industry. Roger speaks at top universities like MIT, Harvard, and Yale, and has been featured in media outlets like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and Fast Company. Special thanks to our friends over at Brand Groupies for connecting Roger and I for today's episode. So Roger, welcome to the Bold Brand Show.
Thank you so much, Josh. How are you today?
Doing well. You know, it's this setup always takes me longer than I think it's going to, and for some reason I decided to do this solo today, so I may be sweatier than usual, but I'm excited to jump into our conversation here.
Likewise.
So on this podcast, we always want to learn what you're thinking about, the challenges you're facing, and some of the boldest moves that you've made with FullStack Modular. Today specifically, we're talking about innovations that you've been part of around the modular industry in construction. And, you know, I love tech. I love all things new. I love all things cutting edge. And so for those of our listeners who are perhaps maybe unfamiliar with what modular construction is in 2025, maybe we could level set a little bit here. I mean, I know modular, some people may think to something very different in the zeitgeist from decades ago, or may have no idea what modular is up to now. How would you define what is making modular unique today, and what's the state of the industry?
Thanks so much. Well, let me give it my best shot in a 35-second history. So the first thing is that modular is just a horrible word. It doesn't not that the word itself is a bad word, but it doesn't describe anything. So our industry is made up of a bunch of industries, and they're all related to componentized manufacturing of portions, usually in our case of the built environment. And so it could be a curtain wall, it could be a panelized wall system, it could be a bathroom pod, it could be a series of desks that you put together in an office building. They're all modular components, and of course now it's a cool word, so they're calling everything modular, including hope you buy a modular. So anyway, but what we do at Full Stack is sort of the most integrated process you can do, which is we build fully integrated volumetric modular pieces of a building that get bolted together and attached to each other like a Rector set and Legos. And we do as much work in the factory as possible, including floors, walls, ceilings, painting, accessories, even furniture for hotels. And it's all done in the factory. And then we bring it with all of the connection kits, which is why I think it's sort of like an erector set, and connect it in the field. And our product is what's called type 1 construction. So it's non-flammable and it's really focused on mid to high rise buildings, which is why earlier you said urban environment where we're normally, well, certainly on the East Coast of the United States and other places, sort of north of 8 stories up to 45 stories. And on the more seismically intense areas like California, sort of above 6 stories and less than 28. And our system is completely integrated. So it has all of the plumbing, electrical, um, structural, and mechanical systems integrated within the system. And even in California, it's the seismic responsiveness to the to potential earthquakes is part of our system. So hopefully that helps.
So I think we said in your bio something like 35 years of experience in construction. At what point did modular become something of a passion for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was on LinkedIn the other day and somebody posted a piece of modular history, which was something called Project Breakthrough, which was created by the United States to create mostly sort of affordable assisted or independent living facilities in the 70s. And my grandfather was actually part of that whole Project
Oh, no
Breakthrough
kidding.
company called Force City Dillon at the time with an engineer named Tom Dillon. So I grew up seeing it, and I never really understood why it didn't stay and take hold. That Project Breakthrough um, got eliminated, I think, during the Reagan administration. So they didn't have any other customers for the product, which has driven my focus a little bit. And so I was introduced to modular very early on in life, and then I watched construction occurring, was in the construction and development business for a long time, and did not understand how incredibly disintegrated and complicated the process that we've created, certainly in this country, on how do you build the built environment, which is why it's often late and not on budget, etc. So I became remotivated about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, to say like, there's got to be a better way, and we have to have more technology. And so going to the geeky side of it, when my grandfather and Tom Dillon, who is a genius, shout out to him, they didn't have really any kind of CAD technology or BIM technology to speak of. So all of it was in sort of pre-planning on, single line drawings in a way that was quite genius and worked very well. Now, of course, you can do 3D modeling on something you download for free on the internet, and you could even get AI help on how to actually organize everything and make it to code in Denver, Ohio, et cetera. So that side of the technology has progressed to make what we do somewhat easier.
So with your grandfather's background in modular, perhaps Legos, Lincoln Logs, sticks
Oh,
and tree forts,
yeah.
or your experience in construction, what do you think it was that inspired you to go down the path of modular?
All of those things. My grandfather was a second generation carpenter. So I
Mm.
had all the things you just mentioned: a tree fort. I had Lincoln Logs in their basement. I actually had a crane that was in the basement. It was a mechanical crane, like a little toy crane
Oh,
that I
no
could
way.
pick up the logs with, etc. So all of those things. But I'm also, and I tell the people, I'm pretty impatient. I don't like waiting in line or wasting time or pretty much anything that is what I think is a time suck. So the idea of sort of sitting around and hoping that the parade of trades was going to be an effective way of putting things together constantly made me think about like there really is a better way. Can we push it? And the industry holistically has done that, both in the United States and around the world. And so we're making headway.
Well, when we talk about the traditional industry, it's typically something like design, bid, build is the
Yeah,
the
I hate that. It
process.
gives me a rash if I'm scratching it because I,
I mean,
yeah,
there are even a lot of
it's
firms that are
a horrible.
design build firms now. So like, how is the modular approach
Yeah.
different than that? How does that process differ?
So good. I'm glad you said that and asked that. So design bid build is not really modularly friendly. You can't design a building and hope that it's going to be modular and then go out to a bunch of modular and then hope that, because every system at this point anyway is very different. Although some of them can be integrated with each other, and we do that. They're not the same systems. So we are really best suited for what you would normally call a design build process, and we insert into that industrialized construction. So we call it design, manufacture, construct, or acronym we run DMC. So design, manufacture, construct, and that's design build with industrialization. And it's also a pretty good band, but
So my first experience working with a firm that was doing some level of modular, it was more like bespoke modular, if you will. It was a firm in Seattle who was doing some uh, gosh, what was it? They were creating a little clean room for a hospital, I think, and they
yeah,
kind of built that off site and they craned it on. And so that was about as close to modular as I had ever seen at that point.
yeah, and
Something is
that's
built
been
off site
happening
and
for
then
years.
dropped in.
Yeah, been happening for years. I've got a friend in the industry who builds hospital rooms and and like in appointment rooms and like those kinds of things. A long time ago, I built before I was even in the business, I built some MRI modular rooms, like
Hmm.
completely enclosed in copper. So, yeah, I mean, things that are repetitive and predictable and organized are a good thing to do for modular. The other thing worth noting is that there is a transportation constraint, so you can only ship things as wide as you can ship things, and that's either train, truck, or boat. Uh, maybe airplanes, but I haven't really shipped them by airplanes yet, even an aircraft carrier. But it's really that form of transportation, and usually the last mile in most cases is a truck, and so
Hmm.
you can really go max 16 feet, max 58 feet, and our mods never are those sizes. But that's one of the parameters that drives the design process. So as you said earlier, our company is really multifamily focused, student housing, hotels, apartment buildings. That's really what we spend most of our time on.
So, are you typically working with the owner or the city or the municipality or the school as kind of the client on those kind of projects?
All of the above, and we are now working with Cal Poly and building what's really the biggest modular project in the country right now, which is to be 7 to 8 buildings, 4,500 beds, and mid tallest buildings in San Luis Obispo that have ever been built, and super exciting. So we do that. We are talking to a number of municipalities about partnering with them to build affordable housing. So rethinking the uh, the team members or the stakeholders in a process of creating housing. So can a manufacturer partner with a city and create housing to the needs that is responsive and not require um, you know some other stakeholders that you normally wouldn't. So could we provide a complete turnkey solution for financing, manufacturing, development, installation, city approvals, all of those things, so that you can speed up. There goes my impatience that you can speed up by which you create housing. But the reality is look at the news any day. It's like, okay, now we're 6.5 million housing units short. Now we're 8.5 million housing units short, and it just keeps growing. We're not doing any better. So.
So the Cal Poly project in particular, I mean, that's remarkable in size and scale. What do you think helped tip the scales for Cal Poly to say, yeah, let's do this one as modular and let's work with you guys on this?
Well, I have to give them credit. They realized they had a problem, and they're unique in some ways in that they're a college that is the, sort of the premier college in the California state college system, and they're in San Luis Obispo, which has very little population, and so they don't really have a lot of trades to come in and build something at this scale. So that was one of the motivations, and then obviously having construction on a school site during operations is an incredible problem. So there's a huge advantage of being able to build it offsite and install it, while they're, in summer recess, etc. So there's that. And then, they also have an architecture school there and an engineering school there. So it just was a good fit. The other thing that's interesting about sort of full stack modular versus most other of what you might call our sort of people in the industry, I won't call them our competitors necessarily, is that we're all type one construction. So non-flammable mid to high rise. I said that. And
Hmm.
that's non-flammable in California is a good idea. I mean, I live in New York. It's not hard to figure out that there's a lot of fires and it's better if it doesn't burn.
I think shifting gears a little bit, firms in the construction space, the AEC industry in general, we're not maybe typical about getting the kinds of press and attention that you've gotten from New York Times and Wired. What's the draw there? What's the the special interest?
It's interesting. I think the answer to your question is that we are trying incredibly hard to integrate sort of tech improvements into a sort of an age-old process. And so, although it's slow, I mean, if you look at sort of construction spending on technology versus almost any other industry, it's pretty abysmal. The reality is that with decreasing skilled labor, although it's doing a little better right now, and with the scarcity of so many things, it's a look for a solution, right? It's how do
Hmm.
we solve this problem? And so they hear it and are interested in it, but we also are, you talk a lot about sort of brands and those kinds of things. Like we realized about a year, probably 3 years ago, that the way you communicate to people holistically, not just in our industry, is very different. So we need to have social media presence and
Hmm.
conversations. And um, I am not people want to talk about this, and I've been doing it a while. So that's, I think, part of it. We have spent a lot of energy trying to create a presence because we feel like it's the only way things get done.
Yeah, I think there's a thing that people don't really think about in terms of brand. They think about branding. They think about how do I change our look, change our logo, change our colors. But there's this feedback loop, right, where you put a message out to the market, and the market sort of echoes it back to you a little bit differently, and then you adjust. Like, okay, if they say this about us, what if we said that about us too?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
there's this little bit of back and forth, which I think is really interesting. Um, I mean, speaking of which, how are you? There's a lot of very obvious answers to this, but how are you uniquely trying to stand out in the market today?
Well, I mean, our system is by itself a standalone system, which we have been very focused on, and it's pretty comprehensive. But we are, as I explained, we are moving to transitioning to a fully integrated system, which is we can work with you, whether you're a school or a private landowner or whatever, it's to build a complete solution to create the housing where you want it. Let's not um, make it 52 stakeholders. Let's keep it as tight as possible so that we can actually create. So that's really a focus of ours sort of for the last 3 years, and we're making lots of headway. I think what's also worth noting is that um, we do some non-traditional things for sort of developers, contractors, et cetera. I am grew up in the Midwest, and I am a complete believer in the building trades. But I'm also um, I also have acknowledged the fact that sort of building trades in a conventional process, which is highly inefficient, is more costly than you can afford to build affordable housing with. And
Hmm.
I've been working with the building trades to talk about that for the last, well, probably 12 years. And they understand it. So our factories are actually signatories with the building trades, but we have basically an alternative apprentice program for the building trades where they come in the factory and they learn a set of skills and they work highly effectively, but they're not sort of A rate carpenters and plumbers, et cetera. They're more learning how to do this. And then we have, in conjunction with the trades, people teaching them. So we're teaching a whole different class of aligned building trades in a factory that has a refined set of skills, but they go to the same place every day. They have the same workers. It's more like a family, just like you would expect in a factory. So it's a little bit of a hybrid, and it's in conjunction with the building trade, so that when we finish our buildings and send them off to San Francisco or New York or Massachusetts, that the trades are the people who built it. So it works really well.
So speaking of that, so you're currently based East Coast, you're New York area, and then you've got projects like Cal Poly. Are you producing those East Coast and shipping them, or is it more
And we have a
efficient to
factory.
have a factory
Yeah,
out there?
we have a factory in Carson, California. And it is specifically focused on the Cal Poly projects right now. And and we are talking to a number of cities, as I mentioned, about doing this in other places as well. And I've talked to mayors of some of the big cities in the country about potentially putting a factory, union aligned, uh, in places that are have major housing deficits. You can guess where they are.
Well, knowing that modular itself is a very innovative thing and very much a trend, I guess you could say at the moment, what are some of the more surprising innovations or trends that you've noticed in the past year, kind of within modular?
Hmm. Well, I am like most people with in awe about of the opportunity that sort of AI brings to our process. Like we have created, I told you, it was much farther along than when my grandfather was in the business. We've created integrated building information management design, process design for manufacturing, all of these terms which people may or may not know. But the idea of being able to take an organized process and not have to do all of the um, clicks and strokes that are required to do a production drawing for 1,000 mods that are mildly different. You can actually write a program or a Dynamo script or something that actually does that quite quickly. Um, and you can also then use that as a quality assurance process by which you can say, okay, I've installed all of this, and you could put a Matterport in the location, and it can
Mm.
do a scan against that to say, oh yeah, you didn't build this right. Here's the problem. So to me, I don't think it's unique because everybody should be paying attention, but in our industry, the opportunity to increase velocity using artificial intelligence, I think, is um, exciting, mildly terrifying, but absolutely you need to pay attention because it is happening real time.
So maybe a generational question. What do you feel like the impact from a generational perspective will be for the modular housing that you're creating, and then also kind of the company that you've created?
Hmm. Well, well, I know that the industry, I know that I am part of helping the industry grow. I'm not the only reason. There are so many, both organizations and people who have done incredibly well in this industry that have pushed it farther. I did read last week, I think, that modular is now 9% of all multifamily starts in the
Mm.
country. It was 3% 5 years ago. It was 5% a year and a half ago. So the growth is happening. So I think that we the ball is rolling down the hill. I just don't know how fast it's going to roll. But it will not be, by the way, the answer for everything. It is not. But it is an answer for a lot of things.
How does that change, especially with adoption kind of increasing and you're getting a lot of good press? How does that change how you're thinking about marketing and business development for your firm?
Yeah, such a good question. Well, I think that we're changing a little bit who we market to. We're marketing to um, aligned uh, developers, municipalities, hotel developers, rather than necessarily hotel flags. We could talk about that a little bit, but also the flags, and 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 really our focus is on creating sort of footprint and capacity in conjunction with those types of, whereas when we started we were just looking for developers who wanted to try out modular, that were pioneers. That's really what we were doing back then. It's not that anymore. And we know what markets we have a huge sort of this value proposition.
I'm obviously host a video podcast. So I'm a pretty big fan of video as a marketing strategy. How do you see video fitting into your marketing approach?
Well, we've done some videos. We've had some. We still have. If you sort of Google them, you can find some videos of some of the projects that we've done in collaboration with the city of New York, et cetera. That we use them a lot for training. And the rest, I don't know. It's interesting. Uh, uh, I I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I wish I had an answer for you. I think it's valuable. But I did. I certainly would do a video of what we're doing before I would put a print ad in a magazine, or a commercial on television, for what we do. So, if I'm sort of grading what they, but I don't. We haven't done a video in a while. We did a bunch 3 4 years ago, and we haven't done any new ones lately. Obviously, I've been on some podcasts, and the media presence is definitely there, but I haven't done a lot. But you know, what can I do? I keep up with as much as I can.
Well,
I don't even need to be here for a video anymore. I could just have RK's OG, AI thing do a video, and you could you next time, and I could do something else at the same time. So anyway.
we could have the virtual Roger.
Exactly. You wouldn't even know. I mean, that's the sad part about it. It is pretty spectacular what you can do. Finding a deep fake is quite complicated, I guess.
So I was talking to a friend of mine, Jay Sabatini, on the show a couple months back. He's with Swinnerton Builders, and the concept that I shared with him is one that I think would play really well in your space too. Is almost like the documentary of a project, right? Like meeting with
Yeah.
with the client, meeting with the customer, getting their story, and then seeing the project come together, and then what the impact is with the folks who live there in the future. I think that
Yeah.
could be just a really fun
It
idea.
could be. Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's definitely something I think would be interesting for sure. Um, yeah, it's interesting that sort of the life cycle would be super interesting once it's occupied. But once it's occupied, we're sort of into our next world, right? So it's a
Right.
very interesting. Yeah, the market is the question. I mean, like, who am I marketing it to is the question. But I do think, we go to a lot of trade shows. I can't ever figure out whether it helps or doesn't help. I mean, it's a present thing, but it's supposedly valuable, or at least the people who market it thinks it's valuable. So, who knows? Maybe it could, you know, maybe we could get a screening in the Sundance Film Festival for like
That's right. Sundance, I think, is the one that's moving to Boulder, so that's
Yes,
going to
it is.
be
It is. It's right in
right
your
around the
neighborhood.
corner
That's
from us.
right.
That's
It
right.
is. Yep. It is. Yep.
Hit it with a rock from here.
Yeah.
But um, Is there anything that you see other industries doing, or is there anything that you'd like to see the construction industry maybe do better or differently?
Well, I mean, one of the things that, hasn't happened a lot of and has been sort of stalled is sort of investment, sort of nationally in, moving this industry along. There hasn't been a lot of that incentive. Like, what do we do to make it better? And there are smatterings of that right now. Um, housing affordability funds with a focus on industrialized construction, et cetera. And those are hugely helpful because the one thing that is a fact with industrialized construction of any sort is that the only way you really can be effective is to have enough repetition. The ideas of economies of scale, it's born out of industrialization, and uh, and have the factory producing all the time. And if you're making, you know, something that is exactly the same, a spatula, and it's industrialized, and you can create market need for all of that, or do a documentary on why it's the best spatula in the world. It has value, but trying to do that with the built environment has all kinds of other constraints, and so you're really spending your time trying to figure out how to do that. I think we have a game plan, but that really is the thing that I think has opportunity is to embrace, and why we're talking to cities now about having a factory that they're providing pipeline for, even associated with developers, so that we can get those economies of scale, produce cost effective solutions in a timely fashion. So there is at least more focus now than there ever was.
So if I put my designer hat on, what are some of the opportunities for customization or to help a property stand out uniquely, especially
Yeah,
if a city's going to have you do half a dozen of these things?
yeah.
Are they all identical, or can they all have kind of their own look?
No, you definitely go on our website and look at some of the buildings that we have. I mean, they can be incredibly varied, both in use type. I've talked about hotels, student housing, multifamily, rentals, etc. But they're also in look and feel. I mean, you can do something very sort of that looks incredibly modular, that's, very more industrialized looking, or you could do something that is very soft and sort of compatible with, um, a more traditional environment, or something in a more sort of wooded environment. There's lots of opportunity for that. The one thing that we do try to do, per my earlier comments, is that we try to we try to limit the variability to meet the market needs. So, in other words, we can have different types of mods, different lengths of mods, etc. But you want as few of those as possible to meet the market needs. So you're trying to optimize, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Um, Maybe we could take a minute to have you look in your crystal ball and tell us what do you see happening with the future of the industry? Is it, and this could be process, could be marketing, could be whatever kind of inspires you at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's two major drives. I've already mentioned sort of how AI is going to influence, but I think that there's two things that I think are happening. One of them, and I mentioned that full stack is moving towards very rapidly, which is a fully integrated solution, so that you are part of creating the built environment and the development process that handles that. So I think you're going to see more of that, because building a factory hoping somebody comes and gives you orders is has historically caused a lot of failures, and I don't think it's going to get any better. So you're going to see more of that, and how that happens, whether it's the gray star who decides to start their own company, or whether it's some consortium that says we're going to put all our business into this type of factory, and we're going to partner. I think you're going to see more of that. On the product side, I think you're going to see some more, and not complete, but some more standardization, so that integrating of, say, sub-assemblies, bathroom pods, curtain walls, etc., is a little more universal in the process than it is currently, so that you can create things faster, right? If I'm just assembling bathroom pods and facades and putting in the electrical distribution in, it's a lot faster than if I'm building all that stuff. So I think you're going to see more and more of that sort of integrated productization, and there's a bunch of people working really hard on that. And I do see that. I do see that happening. And then um, I I, uh, I do feel like um, there will be some material advances that I think will ultimately find their way into the built environment, or that are starting to find their way into the built environment, sort of intelligent concrete or lightweight concrete or responsive windows, or there's all kinds of really interesting things. I think that there will be a marriage somehow at some point between sort of printing and the modular construction. That's sort of my world. Those are the kinds of things I think about when I'm laying awake at night. But those are the things that I think are happening slowly now. But you're going to see velocity, in 2 to 5 years. That would be my guess.
How far are we from a 3D printed modular multifamily building?
Yeah, and that would be more like 6 to 7 years, I think. You could print the structure now, but like the fully integrated thing, I believe that there will be printed components of modular buildings like in the next 2 years that are valuable. I mean, you can do it now, but I mean that are valuable.
Hmm.
But I do until it's sort of I don't know. Yeah. I mean, printing circuitry and all this stuff. I mean, obviously we know it's possible. We print chips and stuff, but like the idea of sort of printing that all into a substrate is fascinating. But I don't think I'm watching anything that's real yet for
Yeah,
that.
I can imagine in the world that you're playing in, sort of pioneering a little bit in this space, and scaling, that there are needs and things that come up. What are some of the challenges that you're facing right now, or what are some of the areas maybe that you're looking for help in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple thing to me. Well, I mean, obviously, financing, which I mean, we're working really hard on, but the idea of financing something that's actually not on site is a big thing for the construction industry. For the manufacturing industry, they do it every day, but that's a big thing, and that's sort of not very techy. And then and the thing that always astounds me, because I deal with engineers every day, is that the hardest thing, in my view, to engineer is mechanical systems, right? So
Mm.
there's the responsiveness of the building envelope that you're creating and its resistance to heat and cool, etc. Then there's the actual weather, which of course is changing, all the time and every day. And then there are the systems that we create in order to try to be responsive to that. So some of it could be sort of passive design of the exterior wall, which I think is a huge value proposition. And then the other thing is the actual systems themselves. And so it seems like the mechanical engineering side of our industry holistically has been very um, it's had a hard time adopting.
Before I let you go here, I'm curious if you have any asks or challenges for our audience today.
Yeah, I mean, if you are associated with government in any way, if you're associated with a bank, if you are a great mechanical engineer, I've sort of laid out the issues associated with our industry, and step on in and help. It will just create more housing and bring down cost of housing and make people capable of buying houses and meeting all of the needs. So jump on into the team.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with us today. Tell our audience a little bit more about where they can learn more about you and Full Stack Modular.
Yeah, thanks. So you can go to fullstackmodular.com. You can learn a little bit about what we're currently doing. And if you're in town in somewhere near Carson, California, and you want to see full production, give us a call and we'll try to give you a quick tour so you can see industrialized manufacturing of type 1 student housing real time. It's pretty fascinating, and our website has tons of information. If you want to get in touch, there's a form. Please send it. We will get back to you.
Well, Roger, thanks for being on the show, and thanks to everybody for listening today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for joining us today on the Bold Brand Show. For all of today's show notes and links to our sponsors, head over to boldbrand.show. Be sure to subscribe to our email newsletter where I'll update you on the latest episodes and other exciting things happening at Bold Brand. If you liked today's episode, do me a favor and share this episode with a colleague. Over at boldbrand.show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where you can watch full versions of each episode and join the conversation by commenting below. The Bold Brand Show is produced by yours truly, Josh Miles, and is a product of Bold Brand LLC, a branding and video agency for AEC firms based in Denver, Colorado. Visit boldbrand.com to learn more, or hit that orange button up top to schedule a time to chat about your branding or video project. Catch us next time where we chat with another bold innovator in the AEC industry. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.